Okay, so what everybody wants to know as usual is what are home prices doing and what are interest rates doing, right? Well, I'll tell you. So home prices in Utah. How's it going? I'm Christopher McGee. I'm the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. We are affiliated with the Keller Williams Market Center in Salt Lake City, Utah. Today is August 11th, 2025. This is the Numbers, the Nuance, where you come weekly in order to know exactly what Utah's housing market is looking like right now. Not last quarter, not last year, but right now. I'm always looking at data weekly, week over week, and then bringing the charts to you along with my nuanced explanation of what I think all the numbers and data sets mean. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so what everybody wants to know as usual is what are home prices doing and what are interest rates doing, right? Well, I'll tell you. So home prices in Utah, for the entirety of the first quarter, they trended very moderately down. For the entirety of the second quarter, they trended super flat. And if we look at the data set of average home price from the very beginning of the second quarter to present, as I do in the charts, then we see it looks like it's trending back up again. Even if we look at it from the beginning of the third quarter to present, it'll look like it's trending up. It has come up 3 weeks in a row. Now, it's not climbing at a rapid pace, but the trend line is moving up. Interest rates possibly contributing to that upward climb on asking prices, as interest rates are now at their lowest point of the year. Interest rates are now at the lowest point they've been since last October, and they're a 0.5 percentage point down from the high point they had in the second quarter. Now, last week I pointed out that inventory may have hit its high point and started to trend down a little earlier than I would expect it to. I expect inventory to peak around September, maybe even October, and I can't say that it started its downward trend yet because it popped up again this last week, but it is certainly not trending up for the last month, maybe even the last couple of months. Importantly, last week I also pointed out that the number of homes that get pulled off the market without accepting any offers has been steadily increasing. That has been trending up ever since the beginning of the second quarter, and it continues to do so now. At the beginning of every month, we always see a spike in that number, the number of homes pulled off the market for any number of reasons. Either they've been canceled, they've been withdrawn, or the listing agreement just expired and they got pulled off. They might get put back on momentarily, but that number keeps trending up. And if that continues to trend up, as I said last week, while inventory trends down, particularly if days on market continues to trend up, which it has been doing, that would be a very good sign for buyers in this housing market. That data set of homes pulled off the market does continue to trend up this week. You'll see that in the numbers, but we can't really say that inventory has started to trend down yet, right? It seems pretty flat. So one of those two data sets is playing along with that idea, but not just yet with the inventory. Let's look at the numbers. So here's where things are in the Utah housing market as of the 11th of August, 2025. Our current inventory stands at 13,456. That is up from last week. Still trending up if we look at the data set like we always do from the beginning of the previous quarter, but this is clearly decelerating its upward trend, and it has come down for several of the weeks preceding this one, although last week it did come back up. The prior week's average days on market came to 64 days. That is up from last week, and this is starting to, we see it trending up, but it's starting to look like a more aggressive trend up across the last couple of months. The prior week's average list price came to $770,658. That is up from the previous week, trending very moderately up across the months since the beginning of Q2, having stayed fairly stagnant through Q2. The anomaly here is the prior week's average sold price, which came in at over $850K. It was $884,605. That is quite the anomaly, because it makes the difference between average list price and average sold price come out to look like it's heavily in the seller's favor. That's the anomaly, because when we look at the chart comparing average list to average sold price, what we get is clearly a trend of things being in the buyer's favor to the tune of about $10,000. But this kind of anomaly happens once in a long while with this data set, because to be clear, we aren't looking at the list price of a group of homes and the price at which those specific homes sold. We are looking at what was on the market last week and what sold last week, and looking at the difference between those two numbers. And when we zoom out, that gives us a helpful idea about how homes are selling compared to average asking price, but sometimes it gives us a week of data like this. Importantly, median sold price last week came to just $520,000. So a big difference between where some of the pricier homes in Utah pull the average up and what most people are experiencing when they buy a home in Utah, closer to 520. Last week, the number of homes that sold came to 563. That's down from the previous week. Still well within the window of what's been normal lately, but remember from last week, we do expect to see this data set trend moderately down across the next month or so because we've seen the number of homes under contract start to trend down. That said, the number of homes currently under contract comes to 5,339, which is up a touch from the previous week. Still looking though to be on a slight downward trend. Last week, the number of price reductions we had on homes that were active on the market came to 1,522. That's down a touch from the previous week. Still looking stalled around 1,500 a week, largely because our inventory seems to have stalled around its current count. Last week, the number of listing contracts that were either canceled, expired, or withdrawn came to 434. That's down significantly from last week's first of the month spike that we always expect, but down to a baseline that is clearly still trending up, like I said. And interest rates finally for a 30-year fixed rate conventional loan are sitting at 6.58%. That's down from the previous week. Like we said, down half a percentage point from Q2's high of 7.04%. And that is it for this week, guys. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions about how I come to these numbers, why I present them the way I do, any questions about this at all, feel free to hit me in the comments. I'm gonna be happy to respond as always. If you or anybody you know is looking to move here in Utah in the coming months, I'd love for you to reach out to me. My contact info is always in the description of the video. I consider it my job to make the moving process as anxiety-free as possible. I'm gonna take the anxiety out of how the transaction is handled because you'll know you're working with somebody who obviously knows the data, obviously comes ready, is buttoned up and professional. I'll make this part of the move as easy and simple and anxiety-free as possible. I'll make sure we get it done right. And if this data is the kind of data that you want to be able to stay on top of, or if it's valuable to you, hit that subscribe, stay up on it with me from week to week. Thanks for watching this week, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.